Looking abroad now, the world's largest rainforest, the Amazon, has caught fire a record number of times this year. The forest's carbon store is key to slowing the rate of global warming. While wildfires are normal in the dry season, there are some concerns that the fires may have been started deliberately. Now, what impact will the destruction have on the environment, and what action needs to be taken to conserve the Amazon? Joining me is Baldwin-Cantello, Forest Practice Lead at World Wildlife Fund International this evening. Will, a very good evening to you. Now, we know that this often happens in the dry season in Brazil, but this year seems to be a little worse than usual. We see the Amazon burning at a rate that scientists haven't actually seen before. What's exacerbated it?
Good evening. Yes, you're right. There's no evidence to suggest that the patterns this year are drier than they normally are. So the evidence points to the fact that these fires have been started as part of the process of deforestation that's been increasing significantly during the last 6 to 7 months. And the burning of the remaining trees and wood matter on cleared fields is part of the process that settlers use as part of their preparing the land for farming. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this is completely correlated with the increased rate in deforestation over the last 6 months or so.
So are we saying then that, I'm looking at a lot of reports saying that these are fires that could have been deliberately started by farmers? I mean, you're talking about deforestation. Some of that could be accidental, could have, they could have just gotten out of control. But do you think that this is what they meant to do?
It's difficult to say from the satellite data that we're using to understand these patterns. And obviously you would need to do a lot of verification on the ground. But what past experience suggests and what the pattern of deforestation and forest fires here indicate is that the likelihood is that, yes, this is the result of the expansion of agricultural land and the preparation for that. But as I say, over the next 6 months or so, it will become evident from ground truthing these patterns, whether that's come to pass or not.
And then on the other hand, you have the far-right president in Brazil, that's Jair Bolsonaro, some call him the tropical Trump, I understand, saying that he's accusing NGOs of burning the rainforest to hurt his government.
We've heard those comments from the Brazilian government, and actually there is no evidence to back up that claim. And actually the proportion of funding that goes to organisations like WWF in Brazil from federal agencies is actually very small. So we are there's no evidence to back up that claim, and we would certainly deny that we would have anything to do with starting of these fires. In fact, we're trying to do all we can to highlight the situation in Brazil and to make the case that actually Brazilian development and the improvement and expansion of agriculture doesn't have to come at the expense of the Amazon rainforest.
Okay.
And we've known from the past years, in the last decade or so, that there have been a number of years when agricultural productivity has increased at the same rate as deforestation has stabilized or decreased.
Well, let's talk about why this is important for you and me. I mean, why should we care about what's happening there? What's the worst case scenario here?
The Amazon rainforest is actually a bit of a litmus test for the world when it comes to our ability or our efforts to tackle climate change. So the Amazon is the largest rainforest in the world. It's also an enormous store of carbon, which we know, and we know that carbon dioxide is the main gas that is driving climate change. So the more we burn and deforest the Amazon, the more we contribute to climate change. But at the same time, the feedback loop plays into the Amazon, where the worse climate change gets, the more fires and drying that can occur in the Amazon. So it's a real litmus test for how we're doing globally. And of course, locally, there are very significant impacts on the indigenous peoples and local communities that use forests sustainably and depend on those resources. And this deforestation and these fires, which can be very, very hard to control, are a threat to those local livelihoods as well. And it's home to a huge wealth of biodiversity, from plant species to animal species. And there's so much that we have yet to find in the Amazon. So it's a treasure trove of unknown biodiversity, really.
I suppose the next question is, what do we do?
Yeah, the answers in Brazil, if we look at past successes, are fairly well known. So we know that if we create the right incentives and policies to increase the productivity on existing cleared land. We know that we can develop these cattle ranching businesses, the soy farming businesses, and so on, to improve the Brazilian economy while also protecting the Amazon. So there are strategies that have been successful in the past. And internationally, it's important that we demonstrate that we're concerned about this, that we are making our own effort to tackle climate change because of that feedback loop to the Amazon. So it's really demonstrating that this is of global concern, and we want to work with the Brazilian government to support a sustainable future for the Amazon in the most positive way we can.
All right, thanks very much for that. Still to come here on South Africa Tonight, your sport updates on the way.